Hi, this is composer Lolita Ritmanis and Dynamic Music Partners. You are listening to the GeekCast radio network.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we get to the interview of Lolita Ritmanis, Michael McCustion, and Kristopher Carter, this following clip is a medley of tracks from Superman the Animated Series. I put this together. This is not an official track. It is made up of 3 different tracks from Superman the Animated Series. It is made up from Batman Shows Up, Trainwreck, Train Robbery Alternate, and Kara Flies. So this clip is made up of those 3 tracks put together as a medley to show you the differences in the scoring for each of these wonderful composers.
Hey everyone, this is Kristopher Carter from Dynamic Music Partners, and you're listening to my friends at GeekCast Radio.
Hello and welcome to the GeekCast Radio Network's interview of 3 very awesome composers. I am one of your hosts, TFG1Mike, and I'm joined by Steve Megatron. Hello.
Hello.
Today we'll be talking with Lolita Ritmanis, Michael McCustion, and Kristopher Carter. Hello, everyone. How are y'all?
Hey, guys.
Hey. How's it going?
We're super.
Pun intended, right?
Of course. Is there any other way?
It was a plug.
Yeah, a plug, yeah. Superbly brave and bold, right?
Well said.
All right, so some background really quickly.
The puns will be unlimited.
Oh. Yeah, that's sadly something I can't ask you about, dagnabbit. Okay, so some background with this. I contacted Kristopher Carter because we are doing a show called Legends of the Dark Knight where we have reviewed all of the Batman the Animated Series episodes, and now we're getting into Batman Beyond. And originally this was just going to be on that feed. Now this interview will span GeekCast Radio, our flagship podcast, Tooncast Beyond, and Legends of the Dark Knight. Because we have all 3 of the... Now, I know you guys have done more than this, but part of the interview title is probably going to be the DC Composers.
Wow.
And I know you guys are currently doing Avengers Assemble.
Yes.
So there is that.
And we did do Spectacular Spider-Man, so there is that.
Did you really? I
did.
My research did not show that up. Well, let's go around the room and everybody introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'll start. Ladies first, right?
Exactly.
My name is Lolita Ritmanis, and I was the first one kind of brought on to Shirley's grand experiment, and shortly thereafter, Michael McCustion was brought on, and I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and moved down here straight after high school to become famous. And, that didn't exactly happen the way I thought originally. I thought I would be a singer-songwriter and be in a band and do all that kind of thing. But then I discovered a love for film music, and that's pretty much how my interest got sparked and eventually led to meeting Shirley.
Mm-hmm.
I'll keep it short. We'll expand some more.
Yes, we will.
Okay, well, I'm Michael McCustion. I'm from the Midwest, born and raised, and I was educated in Texas. That's where I went to college, North Texas State, now called University of North Texas. And I actually became interested in film music before I got to college, so I kind of knew I wanted to be a film composer before I did graduate work. Well, college work and then graduate work. I came out to California to go to the USC scoring program, which was Buddy Baker's first year of leading that program, which was terrific for me because I love classic film music and everything, and he kind of had all those connections to all the old guys, which was just fantastic. So I took that course, and it was really, really important for me because I really didn't know much about how to make film music, and that course gave me those kinds of tools. And after that, I worked as a personal assistant for a while to a great keyboard player named Mike Lang, who's still working here in town and just a fantastic studio keyboard player. So I was his assistant for a while, and during that time is when I met Don Walker, who happened to be Shirley Walker's husband, which I didn't even know at the time. And it was through Don that I ended up meeting Shirley shortly after Lolita had been brought on to the Batman series. So then I kind of joined up later on, and Lolita and I met each other through Shirley, actually.
That's right.
And this is Kristopher Carter, and I came on to the Shirley Walker team actually at the very end of the Batman animated series process. I was actually born, raised, and educated in Texas. And while I was at the University of North Texas, which is the same place that Michael went to for his undergrad, I happened to be in the orchestra playing the double bass with another young music student named Ian Walker, who happens to be one of Shirley Walker's sons. And as a composition major, doing film music was something that I was very sure that I wanted to try and accomplish after college. And I asked Ian if he would introduce me to his mother, and he said, "Do you know how many people want to meet my mother?" Because this also was during the time that Batman the Animated Series was happening, and it was known that Shirley was providing this incredible, unheard of opportunity for young composers to get a real credit in the industry. But I proceeded ahead. I wrote music for some student films, and I made sure to hire Ian for every one of them to play on. And eventually he heard enough that he felt that maybe his mom would be interested in seeing the work that I had done. And he very, very graciously opened that door to come out and meet her and play my college demo tape. And right after college, she invited me to come out and join her as an assistant. And I got to kind of see firsthand what Mike and Lolita and the other composers working under Shirley were doing, and eventually jump in there and join the team as well.
I think one thing that I'd like to add to my very brief intro is the fact that if there are any aspiring composers out there that want to do what we're doing, the reason really we even got a shot at doing any of this was because we had some credibility that we were building already in the business. I was working in the music library at Warner Brothers. Mm-hmm. I was proofreading for big movies. I was also orchestrating for some other composers and on big features. And it basically was a situation where several different people had come to me to say, "Oh, have you heard that Shirley Walker's starting this new apprentice program? And would you like to submit something?" And of course, then I said, absolutely. So I think it's one of those things. It wasn't just like an open call in Variety. Hey, any aspiring film music composers, Shirley Walker's going to start a new program. It wasn't like that at all. So it just was a matter of being at the right place at the right time to be recommended.
So with my... I did research on all three of you today, and I gotta say, it's really hard to find stuff on all three of you because of the simple fact that Wikipedia has an article on Kristopher, doesn't have anything from Michael or Lolita.
No, I'm in there.
You're there, but there's nothing there.
Oh, no, it's huge. It's a long... Are you spelling it correctly?
Yes. No. I'm looking right at my
It's
CD case.
some people are like, there's all this stuff about you and all this stuff about your family and where you grew up and everything. So it's definitely...
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Mike isn't on there. That's what it is. Michael's not on there yet. Lolita, you aren't on IMDb, but Mike is.
No, I am.
It's so backwards. It really, really is.
No, it's all there.
She is so there. She is there more than either of us are there.
No, it's pretty easy. Actually, it's if you just we're all three in IMDb, and and I know Kristopher and I are on in Wikipedia. So.
Yeah. All right. So you all three have said that music was kind of what you all really wanted to do. Was that real when all three of you were kids? Was that really did you say to your parents, "Hey, I want to be a composer one of these days," or did you have some other job in your minds? Lolita, you can go first.
I never really thought of categorizing myself as a composer. What I can tell you is that when I was studying piano all through my childhood, my mom would be in the kitchen cooking, and she would wonder why she's not hearing the pieces that I'm supposed to be practicing. And the reason that was because I was playing my own music, whatever I was just making stuff up. And that was already at age 5 and 6. I was just playing my own little tunes. And so I think I kind of was a composer without even really knowing what that was or making any kind of a statement. And my sister, Brigitte, was a concert pianist, so she was always practicing piano, and I had a great role model in her. And the whole family was quite musical and wrote a lot of songs and whatnot. So music was just a part of our whole spirit of our life. So I never really thought I would do anything else. Although now I'm wondering, gosh, there's so many things I would love to do. I mean, I love being a composer, but life is so full of wonder and excitement. I could do so many things.
What about you, Michael?
Well, I always had music around. I mean, I'd studied piano since I was 5 years old, and I come from a musical household. My mom was a choral music director. My sister is a very talented pianist and singer, just as a hobbyist. It's not what she does, but she's, just amazing doing it. So there was music all around a lot. I did actually a lot of different things when I was a kid, though. My first idea was that I wanted to be a chemist because I really liked the periodic table. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I think I'm fitting into the whole geek idea with saying that.
I don't know. It's way too complicated for me.
But that, I decided I didn't want to shut my... This is the ironic part about this. I decided, no, I don't want to be a chemist because I'd end up doing all this research and I'd spend all this time alone in a room and it just would be this lonely career. So, oh well.
We're laughing because... as a composer.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much all I do is spend all this time alone in a room. Well,
watching men in tights on the screen and all of us are with the superheroes.
It is kind of weird. So anyway, there was that, and then I sort of abandoned that, and I actually really thought I was going to be an architect. And so I studied architecture, and I apprenticed under an architect for 2.5 or 3 years or so in town, and really kind of got my feet wet with that and discovered through that process that architecture, what you think is architecture is not really architecture. It's really just a bunch of, putting together prefab things. And it didn't appeal to me creatively because there were too many predetermined things involved in building a house and stuff like that. That's just how it was. I wanted something a lot more, that gave me a lot more creative freedom. And so I had never written anything until I was, I think, 17 years old. I'd never written any music before, and I had taken this very inspiring trip to Europe as part of an exchange program with my English teacher and other students. And when I was over there, I had this kind of epiphany. I don't know how to describe it, but it was like somebody just turned on a faucet, and all of a sudden I had all this music in my head. I don't know where it came from. It was kind of disturbing in a certain kind of way, but kind of exciting in another kind of way. So I started writing all this stuff down, and discovered that I sort of had an affinity, for composition that I didn't know about at all. I mean, the first piece I wrote was some crazy, SATB choral piece with full piano accompaniment. It was just like, boom, there it is. I was like, where did that come from? So, anyway, at the time, during my sort of adolescence, that was the time when we had all these wonderful movies coming out, like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Superman and Star Wars, and just these fantastic John Williams scores, and it was just so wonderful to hear this wonderful music, and I really connected to it. I'd also been playing in a theater pit band for a while, in conjunction with my school, and doing some community theater stuff during the summer. So I was really loving being involved with music. That's kind of where time seemed to just disappear, and time seemed to just be, infinite. I never could keep track of myself. So I thought, well, my mom suggested to me, well, what about this film composing thing? How would you like to write music for film? And I just was like, well, how am I going to do that? So we began the long process of trying to figure out how a film composer becomes a film composer when he grew up in a farming town. So that's kind of what, got me interested in everything. And I guess you could say I've been around music for a long, long time, but I didn't really make it a serious thing until I was probably in high school when I decided I wanted to be a film composer.
What about you, Chris?
Well, I actually had to kind of prove myself. I think my parents were both very practical, and they thought that being a composer was probably on the other end of the range of practicality. So when I wanted to go to school, they said in music they questioned that, and they said, well, what are you going to do for your real job? Because who actually makes a living as a composer? And I said, well, I will, and I'll show you, and I did.
Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome.
What were some of the first scores that you guys heard that made you guys say, hey, I want to do that?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Actually, I think the first scores that touched my heart were a little bit not so much in the superhero realm. I was a big Dave Grusin fan. I loved Jerry Goldsmith. I mean, I only really discovered John Williams a little bit later. So for me, I think I loved Planet of the Apes. I loved in a romantic genre. I loved On Golden Pond, the Dave Grusin. I mean, this is when I'm in high school. So I really loved all that kind of dramatic stuff. I don't know. What, Chris?
Well, it's tough because, a lot of stuff that I was doing when I was younger, like in high school and stuff, was more about musicals. I was more involved in, like I said, the pit bands, and so we were doing a lot of musical theater and stuff, and I loved movie musicals, so I sort of came from that era. And then with all those other just amazing movies that were happening during when I was a kid, those like that I mentioned before, Superman, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, all these really epic movies that had these wonderful themes and wonderful melodies and beautifully orchestrated. There was something about that really attracted me too. So I think it was probably a combination of music, like Broadway and movie musicals and John Williams.
I would definitely say that my earliest experiences were just from the movies that I loved watching, and it so happened that most of the movies I loved watching as a teenager were scored by John Williams, because I was very much into the science fiction, the fantasy genre. But I think once I got into film music itself, I realized that he wasn't what I would call as much of an influence, because I actually gravitated more towards Jerry Goldsmith, who I would say is the film composing is one of my heroes. But also, as I got into music school and studied, I think that a lot of the muses that the great film composers were influenced by became my muses as well. Stravinsky, Shostakovich, Tchaikovsky,
Chopin,
Richard Strauss, and all those great people. And when you hear that that's where the iconic film composers got their inspiration from, it made sense to kind of go to the source.
Awesome. All right, so tell us about the formation of Dynamic Music Partners.
We understood that together we were a lot stronger than we were individually. Mm-hmm. We understood kind of the way that the industry has changed, that the schedules are so tight and pretty much nobody works alone anymore. And we realized that by working together and making it obvious to our clients that we're all working together, that there was an advantage, because then our clients would know exactly who's writing their music for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of my beginnings were working for composers that would get hired on a big feature, and he or she would have 2 weeks to write 70 minutes of music, and there's just no way that person could do all of it themselves. So there is a team. There was a team back then, and it was a little bit of it wasn't kind of okay to let the world know that there's this team, but everyone kind of in the business knew, of course, that person can't do it all by himself. So even though the main composer would write most of the themes. There a lot of the actual cues, the pieces that are the big moments in the film. There's usually a team behind it, or at least several orchestrators. So coming from that background and having been a part of that, I realized that I really love to work with people that we can all be kind of on the same playing field and inspire each other and not have to kind of be subservient to one another, but work as a team and really inspire and feed off of one another's energy and creativity. So it's been great. And on a purely financial, economical level, it's a great thing because we can stay busy. We have a lot of energy, and one of us feels kind of like, oh, I can't take it anymore. It's too much pressure. There's two of us to take up the slack, or I can go on vacation and just enjoy myself and let the guys do all the work, which I like to do sometimes.
Which we all
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think actually we had been working together informally for many, many years because of our relationship with Shirley Walker. And she had called out the people that she kind of wanted to have be her main music team for some of her later series. It ended up to be the three of us and Harvey Cohen. And so we had this simpatico that we developed in that way over those period of years, but we never really sort of formalized. And when we ended up doing Justice League, which was our first series that we kind of had on our own, Shirley kind of cut the cord and said, hey, you guys, I think you should just take this one. And when she did that, we kind of had to make a decision at that point, how are we going to do this? Because it just wasn't convenient or practical for the studio to be working with three of us as individuals. So we decided to band together and do the series as a group, as we had been doing already. And then one of us said, well, we need a name. And so it kind of started that way, I think. We were already sort of set up for the process and for the workflow, but we just sort of formalized ourselves at that point when we were truly doing our own work.
Yeah. Very cool, very cool. Speaking of Shirley Walker, you want...
So, of course, Shirley Walker was kind of a one-woman show, so what kind of brought you guys all together and brought you to work with her?
Well, she basically... I don't know exactly how she got offered the Batman animated series, but I know that early on in that process, because she was also interested in doing more than just that one thing, she did get this idea that she could mentor people and start bringing them into this show. And she got the green light from Doug Frank, who was at that point one of the main executives at Warner Brothers in the music department. And because of his blessing, she was able to proceed with her grand experiment. And at one point, I think there were something like 27 composers.
I think maybe even more.
That she basically auditioned. So we came into the process. It wasn't like, oh, here, nice to meet you. Would you like to score an episode? It was nothing like that. It was basically you were given just something simple of hers to arrange. Basically, we start from a sketch, so maybe she has a sketch that she's worked out, just a couple of lines that has the basic melody and the harmony for that particular scene, and she has verbal instructions as to which instruments she wants those particular parts played by, and then an orchestrator takes that sketch and makes it work for the complete ensemble. So as an orchestrator, that's a good way to start learning. So we would do that first, then eventually she would give one piece or two pieces, and we'd split an episode, and finally we'd each get whoever would kind of survive this process was given an episode, and that's kind of how the whole thing started. I mean, she was quite an intense person. We completely love her. We miss her terribly. But those early days, I mean, I was scared to death of her, frankly. It's just like, we just were shaking in our boots, to go to her place and show her our music. And she'd sometimes she'd laugh and just say, oh, this is great. Or sometimes she'd say, oh, Lolita, you really need to rethink this part or something, and I would be devastated. But hey, I survived all those years, so I must have done something right. But she's a marvelous, marvelous woman. She was.
Yeah, no, she would talk about intimidating. The thing is, she could just do anything. I mean, she would sit down and play. If we brought her an idea, she'd ask us to do a cue or something, or even with orchestration, she would put the score, the sketch up on the piano, and she would reduce it all and play it all at sight. And it was just like, whoa. I mean, she was just such a phenomenal talent. So I kind of felt like, how am I ever going to measure up to this? And I sort of always thought my next cue would probably be my last. And I guess maybe that was a good thing because it kind of kept us, doing our very, very best, because there were no guarantees with her in that process. There was no like, you're going to be doing this now. Even when we were assigned an episode, there was no guarantee of like, you're going to get another episode. It was really just in the moment, from moment to moment, from project to project. Sometimes I remember very plainly when she called me, she was going to give me an episode. And she said, okay, you're going to do this episode. And then she called me like within 2 hours after she told me that. And she said, oh, false alarm. Looks like my schedule's opened up. I'm going to be doing that episode after all. So it was like, I was ready. I'm ready. Wow, this is great. And I called my mom and everything. And I was just like, I've got this episode. And then I called her back. No, I'm not going to do the episode. So it was a good entree into the whole business.
One other just interjection at this point. The reason she also was doing this because she was working on big features, conducting for other composers, and trying to actually get her own feature career going as well. So we often would not only just work on Batman the Animated Series or later Superman, but we would be brought along to, we worked on Carter Burwell through her, through Brad Fidel, and I don't know. Did you guys ever work for Danny when she was working with Danny Elfman?
Not because of her. No.
Yeah. Anyway, but she was working with these big composers trying to get to this next level, and that's we were basically her support team.
Yeah. Yep. Was there ever any recording?
Was it?
All right.
Was it bleeped out by the network or something?
I don't know. Well,
Corey said beep, beep, beep.
We have a 3-second delay.
Oh, no. We are not live, thank God. No, I couldn't do that. So you guys did talk about the behind-the-scenes stuff with Shirley, and I gotta say, thankfully, La La Land Records likes me enough to send me a review copy of Superman, and I am finally so glad this set came out. I have been waiting for this set since the first 2-disc BTAS set came out, because I'm like, ooh, world's finest, come on! And then it is. Yep. I am like biting my tongue waiting for Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. All right.
We are too, just so you know. But really, we've been wanting to get all this music out for so many years. We just haven't been able to get it out. And then the La La guys come along, and they're kind of our heroes, making sure that this music gets released.
I mean, we get contacted by fans on a fairly regular basis, and it's just they totally don't understand that we can't just send people this music. It's because we will be sued.
Yeah,
so,
it's not okay.
But can't you send us just this one piece? I swear I won't do anything with it. So anyway.
Well, it's all out there. We want it all to be released. That's our goal, is to have everything released.
Yeah, and see, that's the funny thing, because I don't want to guilt trip Chris over this, but I'm probably going to with this next statement. I don't know how much money I had to scrounge up to find those 1999 CDs for Batman Beyond. But, yeah, that needs to get a full score re-release. That really, really does.
I don't think I can continue. I'm too guilted out.
Well, it's one of those things where the original CD for the series was great, but it wasn't. It was just like your standard sound. And I'm not complaining about having the music. I'm just saying that it seemed to me that back then it was one of those things where, hey, let's release a soundtrack for the series, and it's only this many tracks. Where nowadays, and I guess maybe I'm spoiled by La La Land Records, because they come out with these 2, 3, 4, sometimes 8 disc collections that have, I mean, Superman the Animated Series, I believe in total, I'm trying to think how many tracks are on that thing. In total, there is 168 tracks on all 4 discs.
You count fast.
iTunes, dude. It's all about iTunes. As soon as I got that review copy, I ripped it into iTunes, and I find it really funny that the 2 favorite episodes of mine from that series that are on the soundtrack are done by Michael. World's Finest and In Brightest Day.
Well, thanks. That's great.
Steve and I are huge Batman fans. And World's Finest. And what I love about these releases, and I've said this in my written reviews, is that it's nice, nothing against the production on the animated series side, but it's nice to be able to hear the music without the sound effects, without the voiceovers, because there's just sometimes in when you're watching anything where you hear a piece of music and I'm like, ooh, that's cool, I want to hear more of that. Oh wait, somebody's talking. You know, it's one of those things.
We're right there with you.
Yeah. All right, so
sometimes there's a real challenge when the idea of an action series is a superhero that has a lot of banter. And
yeah.
you have a lot of talking and a lot of music and a lot of sound effects during the fighting, and so yes, we're so happy that La La Land, their whole philosophy because they're soundtrack fans too, is to try and present complete scores. And so that fans can get, from beginning to end, the musical statements that we were trying to create.
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of the stuff on Superman the Animated Series is really great. I will say, I think it's the Live Wire section, which I think Harvey did that. I'm trying to remember.
Yep.
Yeah, Harvey did a lot of that, and I forgot. And I mean, I've seen the Live Wire episode a number of times. Harvey Cohen did that one, and listening back to the music, it's like, oh wow, it went from superhero anthems from Lolita and Michael to really, really dark rock with Harvey because of the way Live Wire's character is, and I'm like, I never thought I would hear that kind of music for a Superman show, and it's just absolutely awesome. It really is. All right, we are going to move on to scoring the superheroes. Take it away, Steve.
So how do you guys come up with such heroic themes for any given superhero, whether it's DC or Marvel?
Well,
That's a good question.
The early days with Shirley, she would actually write most of the big themes for Batman the Animated Series. But as she started cutting us a little bit more slack and letting us do a few things, and it really would. It's always about trying to figure out what's the character's essence. I mean, and trying to find a little some catchy tune, I think, or a sound in some cases. Sometimes it's more of a certain vibe, I mean, Shirley had this whole thing for Brainiac, that was more based on kind of like this crazy sound. So it's really an individual thing. I mean, if you're talking about for a whole series, that's a really pretty complicated thing because it has to be something memorable. But of course, the charge from the executives is something something we've never heard before, but it should be something we love and something memorable.
Yeah, I think there's this superheroes. It's like you got to figure out what makes the hero special. If you can figure out what makes that superhero special and translate that into music, then there's your theme. That's my take on it.
What about you, Chris?
I'm just writing from my inner fanboy, really. I mean, it's just I see the hero and I'm just so excited about what he's doing. It just kind of springs forth. There's really no way to quantify, but it's just kind of how you feel, and you want the audience to connect with the character in a certain way. And I think that for me, it's just drawing in also how I feel about the character too.
Chris's Batman Beyond theme is always the one. It's like, people just like, I can't say it on the air. I mean, they just go so crazy when they hear that thing, and it's like,
I'll say it for you. They go batshit.
Yeah.
They go batshit nuts for it. I know.
There you go.
Say that.
Say it. I'll say it. It's my show. I'll say it. All right. So let me just, because originally, like I said earlier in the interview, we were originally going to talk to Chris about the Batman Beyond stuff. So we got to talk about that. Now,
and if we were all there, including Shirley, so I mean, we all have stuff that we can contribute about that.
Right. So, Chris, how did you, when they came to you and said, okay, this is Batman, but it's Batman in the future, and it's not Bruce Wayne, it's this other kid. How did you approach? Because we all know the general themes of Batman and Superman, at least in the DC animated universe. And they're really great themes, but with Terry, it had to be something completely different. And with Batman Beyond, it was totally different because it wasn't your standard orchestral music for the most part. I mean, yeah, it's still in there a little bit, but most of it is harder rock music, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the first thing I need to say is, of course, they did not come to me. They actually came to Shirley, the producers of the show, and they said, okay, we love what you did on Batman and Superman. We know you guys are the orchestral composers, and so we wanted a different sound for Batman Beyond, so we're not going to use you guys. And Shirley said, I beg to differ. We absolutely can do what you want. Why don't you give us a shot at it? And so they said, well, we like Nine Inch Nails, we like Trent Reznor, which is Nine Inch Nails, and Rob Zombie, and we think that this kind of edgy metal/techno approach would fit really well with our gritty, futuristic sound. And Shirley said, well, we're going to go and prove to you we can do this. So we all sat down, she brought us in and said, we need to come up with a demo that showcases this sound. And so we all set out to produce demos of music using those general terms and those artists as inspiration. And then we put together a cassette tape. Remember those?
Yes.
And we sent it over, and I think the producers just were absolutely floored. And they said they knew that we could do it. We nailed it, and that's how we went on to do the series. And the Batman Beyond theme actually was one of the demos that we used to submit for this project. And it just happened to be something that they had gravitated towards, that they decided they wanted to use as the main theme. But the sound was definitely something that we all shaped together.
Now, when you guys, because Chris, was it all you on the individual episodes for Batman Beyond?
It was not. It was all of us.
Okay.
Mike, Lolita. Actually, we did. Harvey didn't work on that series with us, so it was just the three of us and Shirley.
Okay. Because I'm wondering sometimes, did they give you guys notes? Because there are certain scenes in certain episodes where I'm like, hey, that's kind of like the old series. Specifically, at the end of Rebirth Part 2, welcome to my world. Just the theme after Bruce says that line, I was like, hey, that kind of sounds like the old theme. Did they do that on purpose?
Well, I mean, when they would have, when Bruce Wayne would have some sort of moment, that would often go into. That's when we would go into more of an homage to the classic sound. But I mean,
right.
Terry and all the youthful stuff was generally the more stuff. And it was. I mean, we produced this. It wasn't. I mean, there were tracks and tracks and tracks of guitar. I mean, we were producing this like we would produce a record. I mean, we literally, it was, several layers of mixing and overdubs.
Some mixing, then
walls of guitar amps. It was
yeah.
nuts.
I mean, it was awesome. And just, especially just the idea that Shirley fought for us and we were able to maintain this. I mean, Shirley and I certainly didn't look the part of rockers, and maybe Chris was a little closer because his hair was long at that point. But it's like,
I'm a little more close. Chris is the rocker.
They couldn't have. I mean, they could have so easily discounted us, but.
Yeah, because I'm one of those types of fans that, not just with the DC stuff or the animated stuff, but even with film scores, I just notice a lot of that kind of stuff. And with Batman Beyond, I notice it a lot more because of the continuity that the show has. And, even getting to, Shirley getting to do stuff with Batman the Animated Series, and I believe there was a Jingle Bells tune in there somewhere. There was one of the Joker episodes. There was a holiday tune and stuff. All right, so Steve asked you guys about the heroic themes. On the flip side, what makes an awesome villain theme? How do you guys go about crafting one of those, like for Darkseid or for Joker or Clayface or any of those characters?
Actually, all three of those were from the original. Well, okay, all three of those themes were written by Shirley. She wrote the Darkseid theme. She wrote.
Oh, that's right, she did.
Theme.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's great. I mean, that's
she did it.
And we kept using them because the fans wanted it, and it's the right thing to do with that approach. I mean, it was definitely a theme-based approach where it would help the audience know.
All right.
I'm trying to think, actually, but I mean, we could talk about some of the villain themes that we've created. We created themes for the Big Man in Spider-Man. We created a theme for the Light in Young Justice. I think in the Spectacular Spider-Man, we created a theme for the Big Man. And I don't think there's any way to talk any lower than the Big Man. But
I can talk lower than that.
Michael can. But I just know that he was evil, but he was very cool. He was very cool about his evilness, and I think the music had that sense of a groove and an insistence, kind of an unstoppable force, and it had a lot of, the bass guitar, a lot of low frequencies and that kind of thing to kind of play even lower than his voice and provide that nice evil support, the foundation for him.
Yeah, we do that now on Avengers Assemble. We have themes for all the characters, and we share the themes with one another so that if I'm working on a scene that has Thor, I'll take Mike's Thor theme and use it, and and they'll use my themes for whatever piece that they're working on. So
yes, Lolita did Hulk.
Sometimes our themes actually, Lolita had said this earlier, sometimes our themes aren't even as much a tune that you can hum, but just a sound or a feeling. On Young Justice, the Light was one of the kind of the big bad for that whole series, and our theme for them was actually just a specific type of ringing sound. It was kind of what we call it an atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And every time that the light is prevalent, we would work that sound in somewhere in the score. So even if you're not coming away humming the theme, you get the sense that the light is there, you feel their presence.
I think what was really cool about having Shirley do all the themes early on for Batman the Animated Series, I just remember when I would get these faxes from her, because she always would fax over her themes to each of us. And I would play this theme and I would just think, what? Really? Like, I'd get her Joker theme and, it's like, I'm just like, what? What do you do with that, But it was cool because I think I sort of was coming from a place where everything was sort of more standardized in my little neat world of everything working like it's supposed to work. And she kind of turned it on its head for me as a composer. And I know that Chris and Lolita continue to do that. I continue to be inspired by their approach to these different things. And I think we all have started to feed off of each other in the way that we create these themes and what we define as a theme and how we come to the theme. We also write a lot of themes together, especially if it's a show theme for the whole series. We'll do that composition together. We bring our ideas into one room, share them with each other, woodshed, and really craft something together that's really represents all three of us. So, yeah, I think, nowadays, especially in film music, the idea of a theme is kind of wide open. It can be really kind of almost anything can be a theme.
Hey, speaking of themes, you'll be able to hear both the Justice League and the Justice League Unlimited theme, along with a bunch of music from the Justice League, at a concert in Austin, Texas, played by the Cinematic Symphony of Austin. a big group on March 15th. So if you have any listeners out there that are in Austin, Texas, and want to hear a big concert, it's going to be a concert of a bunch of superhero music, but there's going to be a brand new suite of our music from those two series.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, that was one thing I really noticed was how, like Mike was saying about you guys coming together and doing like the Young Justice theme. And with that release from La La Land, I listened to that and I listened to it over and over again, and I can tell each of your like Chris, you have dynamic duo Ice Freeze. Lolita, you have Star City, and Michael, you had Central City / Washington D.C. Those first 3 tracks after the theme, I was like, wow, it's like 3 completely different people, yet they can come together on something like the main theme, and it's like, oh wow. It's just simply amazing. I actually love a lot of the Young Justice stuff as well. Even though the funny thing is, I haven't seen all of the series.
No, you're not alone. But
Yeah.
It's available. You can catch up on it. And the thing is that have to give props to Brandon Vietti, one of the producers, and also Greg Weissman, who wrote a lot of the episodes. But Brandon had a very keen idea of the fact that he wanted the show to have kind of more of a sound designy, kind of a mood thing. Mm-hmm. You can't say it was the same as Batman Beyond, because Batman Beyond was more rock and definitely had a little bit more twists and turns. But Young Justice has a certain mood, and it definitely does not sound anything like a cartoon. So it's just smooth. And, I tell people if they're listening to that CD to be careful if they're listening in the car, because they'll start driving too fast. Or something will happen, at the stoplight. They'll look at the people next to them in the car and think they're evil or something. And anyway, it's very weird. It's a kind of spooky thing.
It's some sort of an experience, that soundtrack.
It was really, and it's funny because hopefully by the time this interview gets put up, I'll have my new headphones, and I'm planning on listening to a lot of this stuff on headphones, and I'm probably going to get my world just shattered with hearing it on the headphones.
I'll tell you what, playing it in your car, as loud as it goes, that's so earth-shatteringly great to listen to.
I can just see Steve is a super fan of the Joker, and I can just see him blaring the Shirley's Joker theme.
Yes. All right.
I'm guilty of that and a little bit of the Beyond stuff.
Well, Beyond is great to blast in a car, that's for sure.
Yeah, that causes me to go a little fast, so...
Yes.
It means so much to us that people actually listen and pay attention to this music, because it's we spend so much time by ourselves in our little rooms, our big rooms, writing our music, and it's but it's kind of lonely, and you don't even know that people are really listening, and once in a while we'll meet some fans either at Comic-Con or at some of these seminars that we do, and it blows us away. I mean, sometimes people will ask us about certain intricacies of our scores, and it's like I have no recollection, but I'll just pretend that I remember everything. It's like all these inner themes. It's, wow.
We do it because we love it, and we have such a connection, a personal connection to the characters and to the shows. But it's so gratifying to talk to you guys and to meet other people that also love it as much as we love it. So, I'm talking about just the whole superhero and. It's a thing. You're either into it or you're not so into it, and we have to be into it to be invested and to write the music that we write, and to connect with other people that are just as invested is great.
I mean, I met a couple at Comic-Con that had gotten married to some music that I did for Starcrossed, one of the Justice League episodes, and they had actually used the recording from on air for their going down the aisle to get married. It's just unbelievable to me.
I bet I can. Did they tell you which track it was? Because I bet I can guess.
What can you guess? I don't know.
It was probably the Jon Stewart Shira Hall theme at the end of Part 3.
What When she flies away.
When she flies away. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's what they got married to and then flew away.
Hopefully not.
But hopefully the bride didn't fly away. Although they both were so skinny, they were that super rock and roll skinny that, you know, where the legs are just like so skinny. I wanted to feed them something.
They were terrific.
Kind of like the Bruce Timm legs on the superheroes.
Right. They were terrific. I mean, that's just a great example of who just mean so much to us because they really are listening to what we're doing, and it's like, wow, we write for you guys. We really do.
Okay. So, out of all of the DC heroes and villains, what is your favorite to score for?
Yeah, we put you on the spot.
Whichever one we're supposed to be writing for this week.
Yeah.
That's the cheap way out. Come on.
I generally say I gravitate more towards Batman than Superman. And that just because usually that's the question. Just I'm kind of more dark and complicated, I think, in my musical approach with that stuff. But I don't know why. I mean, it's just really whatever the traffic will bear.
Well, I'm carrying the torch for Superman because he gets slammed so much for being a wuss or whatever. I mean, I just can't believe, these people that are just like, oh, he just isn't as cool as Batman. I think Superman is very cool, and I like writing for Superman. I like writing for Batman too, don't get me wrong. But somebody's got to stick up for Superman, and I'll be the guy.
There you go. But as far as it went back to like Justice League, I actually had a really good time working on the episodes for with Wonder Woman. Paradise Lost was one of my favorite episodes to work on, and I got to use her theme quite a bit.
Very cool, very cool. It's funny that you say that you like the darker themes, Lolita, since you worked on Monkey Fun.
Well,
That's a very bright episode.
you know what? There are so many episodes. There's a lot more involved. So find it a contrast. So Lala basically picked which ones they wanted, and truthfully, that music now can actually be heard because in that particular episode with the gorilla with Titano, when he gets to be this huge size,
you couldn't hear
it was buried. So I listened to these tracks and I could not for the life of me remember that I'd written so many notes. So it's definitely a kind of a fun kind of thing. Although on the CD, Little Girl Lost Parts 1 and 2, those were that was my first Emmy nomination, and so when I was nominated for Little Girl Lost, that was a huge deal for me, and I worked really hard on that arc, and it was just that to me is something I'm still very proud of. And no, that's not dark. That's
no
bias and there are dark moments, but
yeah, there are a few dark moments. I love that. I think it was one of Shirley's, though. I'm trying to see here. It was one of Shirley's from Legacy when Supergirl chases the robot. I love that theme.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Let me see. So recently, actually, by the time this goes up, it'll be probably about 3 days since this happened. Recently, on February 8th, 2014, you guys had a signing at Creature Features out there in California. How did that go, and what is each of your all's opinions on conventions, signings, interacting with the fans? I know, Lolita, you mentioned that a little bit earlier, but can you guys expand on that a little bit?
Well, I think Lolita really hit the nail on the head. Our primarily interaction is with the producers and the creators of the show, and our primary job is to make sure that they're happy. Mm-hmm. And along the way, we're creating this art that goes out and touches people all over the world. And whenever we have a chance to kind of expand that circle of who we interact with, it's very gratifying for us. We had the best time at Creature Features. It was very well attended, but there was enough time that we could really talk to people and get to know what made them happy about the series. And I think our biggest moment when we realized just how far the reach that these shows was when we did a panel at Comic-Con one year. And it was the same year that Teen Titans Trouble in Tokyo came out.
Hey, Teen Titans is not in continuity.
Oh, thrilling, isn't it? The suspense is killing me.
This part has been destroyed by evil call recorders.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, sir?
About the call being destroyed?
Yeah. It was Darkseid or the Joker. One of those. Oh, God. All right, people. So we had to do some creative editing around the end of the interview, because at the beginning of the interview, when I started to use my call recorder, it shat the bed. And then Steve used his call recorder, and it worked for an hour and 1 minute. 4 minutes shy of the actual discussion we had with Ms. Ritmanis, Mr. McCustion, and Mr. Carter. So we are so sorry. Basically, what you missed was part of a question I asked them about conventions and fan meetings and stuff like that, and their contact information. But still, after going back and looking at the file, we're like, oh no.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It was still very, very awesome talking with the three of them. It was a lot of fun. A lot of cool questions were answered. A lot of interesting answers. There was one point in the beginning where I'm like, okay, Mike and Lolita, stop cheating off of each other's papers. Because I swear, as soon as she said her bio and then Mike said his bio about they both have sisters that are into the music and everything, I'm like, are they looking off each other's papers? Or is this high school or something? But yeah, very, very, very cool. Again, so sorry the end of it got cut off. I sometimes I really hate technology. But again, thank you so much to Michael, Kristopher, and Lolita for taking the time. The main body of the interview's there. Again, so awesome. So unleash the geek in you, and we will see you next time.
Ooh. Technical difficulties. Let's move on, shall we?